Thank you, Intuition. I've been sitting here yapping at myself, and you're the first one who said, dude, you're muted. Thank you so much. Thank God I've got you guys here. I could probably do a whole show muted. People would think it's a mime extravaganza. Who's this guy miming? With the hands and the pictures and the screen. Big love. Namaste, everybody that's joining in. Hope you guys have had a great week. I couldn't resist doing this because I'm like, I'm ready. You know, like when I say ready, I mean like really ready, you know. Now, why is this doing this? Don't save. Okay. What is this? That we want to keep, that we don't need. Okie dokie. Karaoke. So now we seem to have this issue. Okay, let's put on the stage. There we go. So namaste. I see we've got like 11 people have arrived. I was a little bit late, as always is the case. Do excuse me for that. Now, why is this like this? Okay, I know what I've got to do. I've got to redo it. It's not a problem. I shall redo it. I found that with pictures, see, I want to share a whole lot of pictures in one shot so that I can just flip between it. And that to me seems like the most logical way to do it. So I figured that would make this most sense. So excuse me while I reselect all of these images and get them all here to open. And then we go to our StreamYard. I do the thing when I'm ready. Sweet. So one of the things that's been bugging me, and I'm gonna say it, and you've probably heard me bang on about it in the round table, but now I want to like really focus in on it and get like a focused conversation about it. It's not going to be a long conversation, but I think it's going to be a somewhat focused one. Is this nonsense about the Kabbalah being Jewish? Yes, the Kabbalah, as we've been presented a Jewish version of Kabbalah. But I want to show you guys how ancient these ideas are. And in truth, what the Kabbalah really is. And I'll be able to show you by actually showing you some of the mechanics behind the Kabbalah. And that should be able to create a distinction. Now, I've shown you some of my charts in the past, right? Which relate to synergizing different aspects, right? And how important it is to be able to take note of all of these things and recognize exactly what it is that's going on when we're looking at it. So here we go. Now we're on track. So here's a picture, right? Obviously, we're banging on here about Sumeria. I want you to look at what we're looking at very carefully here, right? It's the Sumerian tree of life, and it goes right back. You know, the Akkadians pretty much use the same thing. And this is a very old one. Notice there are 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 spheres that are all connected in a way that these are all connected to 3, right? And a 4th, right? So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 connections. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 connections on the next one. 1, 2, 3 connections on the next one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 connections, and then 1, 2, 3 connections. Then we have 3 on the top that only have 2 connections, but you'll notice how the 2 on the top are distinct from the 5 sets in as much as they don't connect to each other. They only connect in a line. They're almost, in a sense, disconnected from the tree of the life, and they create an outer circle, if you will, which sort of goes past all of the other 10 flowers. And notice there's a big flower here, but this flower is sort of in the front of all the other flowers. And that's quite an interesting perspective. That represents the entirety of the tree, right? And you'll notice that there's 1, right, 2, 3 divisions, and then in the bottom there's a base, which is the baseline, which is the root of the tree. So these ideas and these motifs are pretty much universal. And essentially what we're looking at here are the 10 Sefirot, right? 5 and 5. Now, the 10 Sefirot are divided into 5 fingers and 5 fingers each, right? So you go like Kether, Chokmah, right? Which is quite important that Kether and Chokmah relate to each other. Then you got Chesed, then you got Tifaret, and then you got Netzach. Then you got Yesod, you got Geburah, you got Hot, and you got Yesod, and you got Malkut, the earth. So these 10 Sefirot fit together like this in a state of prayer, which is what this symbolizing. And then above that, you got the 3 divisions, which is the Ein Sof and the Or, the Ein Sof and the Ein Sof Or, as these ideas have been presented to us through modern versions of Kabbalah, although they're not so modern. And so as you start to delve into these very ancient traditions, you start noticing the same pattern. You start noticing it everywhere. Big love, we got Gaz. Yes, these are the Anunnaki guys that they keep banging on about on all the clickbait shorts. Clickbait shorts all over the web. How are you doing, Gaz? How are you doing? All those weird Japanese writings. What do I call you? I don't even know where to begin pronouncing it. We got Tom in the house. We got our tuition. And everybody else that's watching, big love and welcome to all of you. I hope you guys are having a good one. So yeah, you'll notice that all of these trees, and let's look at some more of these trees, right? Let's look at some more of these trees. I want to get to the trees. Okay, so here we can see, you know, a Syrian tree on the left-hand side. You'll see there's a similar thing going on, right? Only here, you've got 5 on the top, 5 on the sides. So you've got the 10 that connect to each other, which are an intricate web. So this one connects to this one, connects to this one, connects to this one. This one connects to that one, connects to this one, connects to this one. You'll notice they're all connected to a lot of them, except for the 5 on the top. They're separate. They stand outside of the tree, and they only connect to each other in a chain. So this one is only connected to that one and that one, where this one is connected to that one, this one, that one. You see that it's always connected to at least 3. And you can see here's another version of the Assyrian tree here with little flames attached to it, right? Basically the exact, very similar idea, only here we've got different numerations. We've got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we've got the 7 pairs, which is the 7 polarities. And then we've got 1, 2, 3 pairs, right? Which is the higher triad of Kether, Chokmah, and Bina. And then you've got the Ein Sof Or at the top. The same idea as the tree of life. It's not that different. Here we got another one. This one is, where's this one from? Somewhere in Babylon, Babylonian tree. These ones have got flowers on it. They're all very similar motifs to the tree of life as we know it, right? Here's another one. 2, 4, 6, 8. Once again, 2, 4, 6, 7 on the top, right? This one's a slightly more complex one, but notice at the top here we've got the idea of the dove, the bird that's flying, with the Christos in the dove. So you can see how old these motifs are, from whence like our religious orders have gotten their sort of information from. right? This is Assyrian, this particular one here. And you have nothing left. This is like the only place to hang out, and you torment me. Am I tormenting you? Who's tormenting you, guys? Who's tormenting you? Is it me? Both images are symmetrical. I reckoned I'd mention it because symmetry is a pattern of creation itself. Exactly, Tom. What's going on, Gaz? Are you okay? I hope you're good, man. I hope you're well. I hope you're thriving. So where was I? Yeah, so looking at these trees, right? Here's another one. This one I think is this Arcadian or is this Sumerian? I'm not entirely sure which one this is. It's either Sumerian or Arcadian, one of the two. Also very, very old. And look at this tree, very intricate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then we've got this branch at the top, which is a defining factor, right? Then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we've got 10 and 10 and 7 across the top. Very interesting because it's relating once again to the Sephirot and to the 7 chakras. This is a combination of the astral and the etheric sort of structures, if you will. Now let's take a look at some of the obvious smoking guns that nobody really wants to talk about, but I think they're really important to get a handle on. Oh, AI. Are we talking about AI, guys? AI, or are you saying L? That's quite funny. Like L is AI, isn't it? When we get right down to it. So the smoking gun is Lilith. And this isn't just Lilith, but this is an obvious one. So we all equate Lilith with Judaism, don't we? Well, sorry. I'm sorry to burst the bubble, but they borrowed it from a series of cultures, and it started with Lilith, who dwells in the desert lands and open countries in the spaces, and is especially dangerous to pregnant women and to men and infants. Men that want to be fathers, right? She will seduce them. Pregnant women are in danger of her, and infants. This is a demon of the wasteland, and her name is Lilith. So we can see how much of the infrastructure, which is very ancient in the Judaic school of thought, has literally been borrowed verbatim from Sumerian and other different cultures, right? And am I going this right way? Right. Let me go the right way. Yes, a beautiful tree, very beautiful tree. This one I think was Arcadian, if memory serves. So Lilith is obviously, I've got a little bit of information about her. She's a role as a succubus. The Mesopotamian myths and incantation texts describe Lilith, or another name she went by was Ardat. Lily, Ardat Lily. You see the word lily? I think it comes from there. As a nocturnal demon who enters homes to seduce men and cause them to have erotic dreams, wet dreams, in order to produce more demons, right? She's a wind spirit of nature. The name Lilith is derived from the Sumerian word lil, meaning wind or spirit, and they're considered disease-carrying spirits of the wind. That's quite interesting. The wind carries the disease spirits. Representing sexual frustration and danger, the Ardat Lil, or as we know her, Lilith, specifically was portrayed as a sexually frustrated, unmarried, or infertile demon who would aggressively target young men. There's associations here with Inanna from the ancient Sumerian myths, such as the Gilgamesh and the Huluppu. I don't know if you know the story of Inanna. She used to take men to her bed and she used to make love to them till they were no longer alive. And the first guy that survived her onslaughts, he became her concubine, male concubine. Is that the right word? Became her consort, basically. And that was the guy that she went down into the underworld for. Just, the myths of of her going down into the underworld, where she had to remove all of her lapis lazuli goods in order to cross by each different stage of the underworld. And she was crucified down there. Anyway, there's different versions of the myth as well, in fairness. So in some myths, such as Gilgamesh and Hulupu tree, the dark maid Lilith is described as living in the trunk of a tree, and refusing to leave, serving as a symbol of chaotic, untamed, dangerous female power. I can see, that would be something that a lot of men would probably be scared of, because they probably wouldn't understand it. So she was also associated with all sorts of. She was blamed for harming infants and pregnant women, and portrayed as a winged beast with like talons, big claws, like bird-like. Now, there's stories here that relate to the bird people from the shamanic traditions. Is this the same thing? I think this is some interpretations confuse Lilitu, the female demon, with Ninli, the lady of the wind, and who was the consort of the high god Enlil. Ninli was the great healer. She was the great healer, and she was, I think, somehow fairly instrumental in the facilitation of humans as well. I mean, they all played their roles. But the Akkadian, Babylonian context, Mesopotamian spirits like Lililu were often described as having a husband and being incapable of bearing children in the traditional sense, unlike goddesses. Associations with other demons. While not her consort in Sumerian texts, she was grouped with other malevolent entities like Ardat Lili and Lamashtu. So you can see that there's quite a lot of lore here, for example, right? They used to make these amulets, protective amulets, because of they were being a threat to children and childbirth. Women would wear these amulets when they were pregnant, protective magic, and they would bear the names of the angels Senoi, San Senoi, and Samang Gelof, and these would traditionally ward off Lilith's. Her vile charms, if you will. Some of the modern non-traditional interpretations have reframed Lilith as a figure of historical Kabbalistic folklore consensus. So there we go. That gives us an idea of just what we're dealing with. Now, I want to pause on that for a moment, right? Many of these things that have been associated purely with the Kabbalah actually have nothing to do specifically with Judaism, but we give them a Judaic slant. The tree of life is very much coming from Sumerian. The Akkadians had the ideas of Sephirot, right? They had Sephirotic trees of creation, and they had 9 spheres of the Sephirotic tree of creation. It's quite important to understand because it's going to give us context just now. And these 9 spheres are the same things that the Chaldeans would use, and the Chaldeans had what we call the enneagrams, right? In fact, you guys have probably seen my Chaldean. Let me pull it out for you guys so you can see it. Very important to see it because it's a picture. So if you look at the enneagram as I've presented it here, let me pull up a nice one. There we go. There's a nice one. If you take a look at the way in which the enneagram is represented, this enneagram that I've got here, it's not an enneagram, it's 2 enneagrams. There is a green enneagram and there is an orange enneagram. Those are the 2 enneagrams here. The yang enneagram and the yin enneagram, masculine and feminine. Related to the Ida and the Pingala, the left and the right path. And then there's another 12-sided star, which is not an enneagram because it doesn't follow the recipe of enneagrams, because it's 3 triangles: a yellow triangle, a blue triangle, and a red triangle. The yellow triangle is 369 for obvious reasons. The blue triangle is 825, and the red triangle is 7, 1, and 4. And obviously 7, 1, and 4 adds up to 12, which is 3, right? And 5, 8, and 2 adds up to 15, which is 6. And 3, 6, and 9 adds up to 18, which is 9. So you see the 3, 6, 9 motif is repeating itself. This image that I've got here, just so you know, I got it from a Chaldean seal. And this is carrying the Sephirotic potentials, the 9 spheres. And this is essentially the basis of numerology as we know it. Now, when we look at the Kabbalah, what the Kabbalah essentially is it's numerology. That's essentially what it is. And so it's quite interesting when you start to really appreciate it, right? The fundamental is Howard here with us. The Howard. Big love. Namaste, Howard. How you doing, brother? Hope you're good. Hope you're well. I lost my thing. Share screen. I lost my screen. I accidentally closed it. So let me go and get that window back. Let me get my window back. There we go. Got my window back. Just want to get my other screen back so I don't lose my place. So yeah, what I've got up here using as the enneagram, and there's actually 2 enneagrams, and the third one's not an enneagram. An enneagram is very specific, like a pentagram or a hexagram or a septagram or an octagram or a dodecagram. An enneagram has to be 9 lines that are all exactly the same length. The last point of the 9th line needs to meet the first point of the first line, and each line needs to go from one line to the next without leaving the surface that you're inscribing on. These are the principles of magic and sacred geometry. If you're going to inscribe a geometric symbol, there are recipes for how to do it in order to maintain the prana and the chi to fulfill each of the aspects of this, the points that you are inscribing. For each point carries its own element of archetypal relevance and represents a circle in itself. Really important to understand this. So when we're talking about a pentagram, we're talking about 5 spheres and how these 5 spheres are connected, right? When we're talking about an enneagram, we're talking about 9 spheres and how these 9 spheres are connected, right? And when we look at the enneagram system, we'll notice that there are 18 spheres. So I suppose this is probably a good place to also, before we do that, let's continue with where we were at. So the Sufis. Now, what we call the Kabbalah is called Qibla. Now, Qibla relates to the direction that people face when they're praying, right? Mecca. But it's more than that. That's the exoteric realization of Qibla. Qibla is also got to do with psychic internal orientation with the 9 spheres. And so within the deep mysteries of the Qibla, there is the knowledge of the 9 spheres. And this has been sort of quite well brought into the public domain by the Sufis who know these mysteries. And the Sufis who practice these Qibla mystic arts go into shamanic trance, and they traverse these 9 spheres when traveling out of their bodies. And it's all about conceptualizing this tree of life, right? These 9 spheres, which is the tree of life. This is the Kabbalah. When you start to look at what these people are describing or what they're saying, this is exactly, the only difference is they haven't stylized it in the way that it's been stylized by the Judaic people or by the Hermetics. And I believe that stylizing is really part of some big psyop. They are trying to mislead us. They want us to get lost in these little geometric pattern drawings that they make for us, because those are so limiting. And I'll explain to you why. Got to keep track of the time. I can't go for too long. We've got an hour. So these these fundamental spheres, right, think of them as the fundamental archetypes upon which all things are structured, right? And this is why we relate to it the sword of heaven or the lightning bolt, right? The lightning bolt is you know, there's Pitta in Sanskrit, or Zeus or Jupiter, Diopita in, the European or Greek-based systems. And what we're talking about this with the Al Insan Al Kamil, this is this journey of remembrance, to remember these 9 different fundamental directions, which aren't really spatial directions. So the Qibla is viewed not just as a location in space, but as a direction of consciousness, connecting the seeker to the center of all existence. And I want you to think about that for a moment, just exactly what that means, right? So let me grab those swear words. Big love, namaste. How are you doing, Freya? Hope you are well. Let's get the fluking tree of life, the one which I find annoying. Okay, yeah, I think I don't actually have to. I don't have to use that. I can just use this. Let me use this picture. I'm going to find it here because I've got tree of life saved, and I just go tree and pictures. Tree should be in here. Should be coming up. That's very strange. It doesn't come up. Okay, so we will go with the tree of life here. Tree of life, Kabbalah. And they will give us a pretty little tree that we can use. There we go. Now we need to. What is this? Why is there this issue here? This is a little bit annoying. Okay, that'll do. Okay. So we're going to share that one instead. And we're going to oh, I have to stop sharing. Okay. Stop screen and share screen. It doesn't give me enough options here, to be honest. Okay. But here's the traditional Kabbalistic tree of life for you to take a look at. Right? And tell me that you don't see what I'm seeing here. I find it a little bit offensive, if I'm honest. Right? Because firstly, the way in which it's structured is like little balls and little paths that connect these little balls, like it's a little set of boxes. It's almost like these. It's designed to box you in. And what this does not represent, I think, which is really, really important for us to recognize and realize, is that life is a fractal, right? And any system that you have needs to represent the fractals. Ay. He's being cheeky with a little one, growling. Dogs are in a funny mood today with the little doggy. He's been annoying to the big one. But anyway, so yeah, this particular tree of life image is one that's been given to us, and it's been propagated by both Hermetic Kabbalists and Jewish Kabbalists. Now, the first thing that they tell us is that the Hermetic Kabbalah comes from Jewish Kabbalah, right? And we're supposed to believe that, which to me is ridiculous, right? I believe that the Hermetic Kabbalah is called the Hermetic Kabbalah because it comes from the Hermetic secrets And the Hermetic secrets were the ancient Greek knowledge of sacred wisdom that was carried by the ancient Greeks. I mean, the ancient Egyptian knowledge that the ancient Greeks spoke of, that they got from ancient Chem, from the Kemetic knowledge, and from the librarians of Alexandria and those before, from whence Greece, the very ancient part of Greece, reckons they were, they had carried all of that ancestral knowledge forwards. This is why the Greeks were so obsessed with ancient Egypt, because they saw their own ancient past in the Kemetic lore. And so this is really interesting that we haven't been sort of given this full picture so we can understand it. And when we look at the Hermetic Kabbalah, right, the Hermetic Kabbalah is very interesting because it carries one fundamental secret, and that secret has got to do with the Tarot. You see, the Tarot, we've been told by all of the people in these modern book writing agendas, right? And understand it's really important to grasp that all of these books that we are getting that have been written in the last 3, 4, 500 years, whatever, what they say, have been carefully curated by a printing press. And that printing press was 100% controlled by the aristocracy and by people with money and power, right? By the Masonic lodges that were basically investing in knowledge, right? And so this is really interesting for us to just take note of this. We need to understand this. All of the books written about the Kabbalah, I believe, are designed to mislead us. Just like all of the books written about history is designed to mislead us. And the history that they presented us, not true. The history of the Second World War, if you look at it, it's a lie. Go back further in history, lies. You know, there is some truth to the Tartarian history. Okay, I know there's a lot of conspiracy theories that are ridiculous. There are so many different opinions about Tartaria. You could write a book about the different opinions, but there's definitely some truth to the fact that our history has been doctored and we've been lied to. That is absolutely obvious. So the history we've been given isn't the truth. So hence we now need to go and look everywhere to try and find little puzzle pieces to understand our history. And part of our lies that have been given to us, it's all been given to us by the same people that curated the same printing presses. Our languages have been controlled by these people. These people have been able to structure our dictionaries, right? How words are spelt. So we would lose the knowledge of gematria and numerology, which is a big part of the Kabbalah. And not only was our dictionaries changed, the meanings of words were changed, right? Subtly changed, generation by generation. History was changed. Our knowledge of physiology and our body was changed. They took away our knowledge under the guise of education. They educated all of the true knowledge out of our children and filled their heads with nonsense. This is why we've got Gen Z. Okay, if you want to understand why this is all happening, you've got to understand the generations. Have you guys ever wondered what's going on with the generations, right? I am considered Gen X, right? And what comes after Gen X? Gen Z, right? When does Gen Z go until? Does Gen Z go up until 2011? Gen Z date? I think it goes up till 2011. I could be wrong. Let's take a look and see what we can see here. So have we got a terribly bad thing here? Okay. The Generation X, yep, till 1980. The millennials came from 1981 till 1996. And Gen Z was 1996 till I think it's still okay. Now we've got Generation Alpha. When did Gen Alpha begin? And you're going to see the dates. It's going to be pretty impressive when you look at them. When was Gen Alpha? They say 2010. So between 2010 and 2024, I was thinking they were going to say 2011, 2012, but 2010. Okay. So just take a look at what they've done here and tell me it's not fairly obvious for us to understand, right? Because when we look at the current generation, right? The current generation is Generation Alpha. We are in the time of reset, right? There was Gen X, right? Then there was the millennials, right? And then there is Gen Z. The millennials represents Y. So we've got X, Y, and Z. What happens after Z? The alphabet resets. What does it happen after reset? It starts with a new generation, Generation Alpha. Why is it called Generation Alpha? Because when will Generation Alpha be becoming young adults? 2029, right? 2028. So what they're trying to say to us is that between 2026 and 2028, there's going to be a big reset, right? It's happening now. And that big reset is going to prepare the next generation of adults, which were born between 2010 onwards, that will start to be becoming 18 years old when they are 2028, right? 2028, 2029, they'll be just becoming young adults. And they will be the harbingers of the new resetted generation. That's why they call Generation Alpha. And Gen Z was the end of the last generations. And then there was Generation Y, which was the millennial generation. And then there was, before that, Generation X. And before that, we got the baby boomers and we got everybody else. But don't you find that interesting that they've actually, who do you think's responsible, right, for making up these names? I mean, you couldn't make this up, right? This is like it's almost too amazing when you think about what they're actually saying here. What was that? Why can't I control this thing very well? You heard that a lot of people born in the 90s still gravitate to sensibilities, and the 2000s and onwards produces more normie children due to dumbing down of the culture. Yeah, I think, Howard, there's a lot of dumbing down happening. I think it's a big part of it. And speaking of the dumbing down, right? This idea of people being sort of dumbed down, the normies being dumbed down. But what about the esoteric-minded occultists, those that were desiring to understand knowledge, those that were desiring to understand the deep esoteric, the arts, right? Were they also dumbed down in some way? And if so, what does that mean about where we're at right now? I think it's really fundamental for us to just grasp exactly what we're saying here, right? Because indeed, you've had this massive dumbing down of society, which is truly a profound thing if you think about it, right? But we've also got this dumbing down of the occult art. So think about yoga. Yoga got westernized. They invented these 7 color chakras: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, right? and they reinvented what chakra represented. They reinvented what karma represented. They got hold of yoga and they turned it into something very different to what yoga is in its tradition, right? Became a trendy thing. So they've taken the Kabbalah, they've turned it into Jewish mysticism, knowing that they were going to turn humanity against the Jews because it's part of the plan, right? Why do you think the Zionists hide themselves within Judaism, right? Why do you think everybody funds the Zionist government and stuck them in Israel and got a whole lot of people to go and live there who were Jewish so that they'd be stuck in that dynamic? So this is a global consortium of people, and they inherited the ideologies and knowledge of the Frankists, who had inherited the black magical knowledge and occult heretical views and ideologies and practices of those that came before them, right? And so when we look at where the Frankists came from, it's got a pretty dark past. Google will tell you that the Frankists have not spawned the Zionists, but have heavily influenced Zionism. Let's just take a moment to digest what that actually means. No, Zionism didn't come from Frankism. However, Frankism heavily influenced Zionism. Well, if it heavily influenced Zionism, then it came from it, right? Because these are movements, these are political ideologies. And if one political ideology is heavily influenced by another one, you could say that it came from it. Well, it's not exactly the same as what it was, apparently, but it came, it was heavily influenced. So, and then when we go back, we're looking at the cults of Shabbatai and Shabbataiism, which is like heavy, dark Zionist roots. And basically the same ideas as the Zionists. What the Zionists are doing now is what their plan was to do. It was to do with controlling and taking over Earth and generating immorality in the world. It's just part of the mission, immorality. So why do the Zionists want pedophilia to be legalized and lawfulized? And it's okay if it's AI. It's not okay, man. You don't watch children doing funny things to kids. It's psychologically ruining for an adult to even consider such a thing. Watch it as a sort of sick, demented form of entertainment. There's something wrong with it. So our occultists and our esoteric law givers and bringers have all been basically writing the same books that were written by other people who read the books, that wrote books by people that read books that wrote, and it's an endless line that comes from the same place, right? And that place is deep down in the heart of Freemasonry. Those that have been controlling the book press, and the book press, the Masons were connected to a part of the church. For example, when you look at this, like, imagine these days that we say that like the Catholics have got a very small influence on the earth. I don't know whether they have a small influence. They control a lot of the important telescopes, at least they have, especially the ones looking for extraterrestrial life, and they have done so for decades. But when we look at the Jesuits, right? The Jesuits is a very interesting bunch, right? The Jesuits now might be a small fry, not a big deal. But in the heyday, they were a big deal. They were like a form of intelligence. And they controlled. The Jesuits were investigating. They were finding out secret knowledge. And so the Jesuits were an occult order, right? And this occult order of Jesuits was a big part of what evolved out of the... imagine at the time of the Crusades, they had these organizations that were like intelligence gathering organizations. Like basically think of what we call Nazis, the SS, going to try and figure out who's a Jew, right? During the Second World War. It's the same idea, but they were looking up bloodlines and they were trying to figure out who carried the spark, who carried the gift of knowledge, who would likely have knowledge of the true esoteric origins of the true occult sciences, because they had to rewrite them. So do you guys know that most of the Western occultist books have been heavily influenced by the can you see the books on my back shelf? The big black one on the bottom there. You should be able to see it. I'm pointing right at it. It's the books of occult philosophy by Agrippa. Now, those books of occult philosophy by Agrippa, There's 4 of them, right? They heavily influenced a lot of occult therapeutics and a lot of occult philosophies. That guy wasn't an occultist. He was a researcher. He went gathering lots of different pieces of paper and different scrolls and compounded them all into a big book and sort of surmised what they were. And he was a bookworm. He was not truly a magician. So when you start to look at like where our knowledge circles came from, and when you look at all of these people that were these writers, what groups they were in, right? Societies. They were in groups that had sworn secrecy to all of this occult knowledge, right? But then they wrote books about it. Isn't there something deranged about this? Well, what is the best way to hide something? The best way to hide something is in plain sight. Write it in a code that nobody else will be able to make sense of because it's wrong. And then give the way to decode the code to a select few that are then able to actually decode what the true esoteric knowledge is. And so this is why all of the Kabbalistic lore and all of the nonsense is so completely defunct. Why do you think you have so many people practicing Kabbalah, but none of them are actually getting anywhere? None of them are actually becoming enlightened. None of them are reaching into a higher state of consciousness. We don't have these truly mystically sublime beings. What is this about? Shouldn't we be having lots and lots of these like amazing, incredible human beings that are so powerful that they're changing the world around them because of inspiration? They should be out there walking on water right now, shouldn't they? Right? Think about it. I should be sitting by the beach and I should look out and I should see people walking across the water, because there's so many people practicing the Kabbalah these days. So many people, well, practicing, interested in, dabbling. But my point is, well, when we start to look into it, we start noticing the situation with the Qibla. And the Qibla I was talking about just a few minutes ago, right? It's still up here on the screen. Relates to the 9 spheres of Sufism. And the 9 spheres of Sufism relate to what I'm going to unveil as the Enneagram, which is the source of the true Kabbalah, which comes back to the Ennead. And the Ennead are the 9 deities of ancient Egypt, right? I want you to just remember that. Hold on to that for a moment. But here's the numbering system, right? And I think this is quite an important numbering system. We're talking about ancient Egypt, right? So how did their numbering system work? Let me run it down with you. I'll use the Jewish version. 1, Aleph. 2, Bet. 3, Gimal. 4, Dalet. He, Vav. 6, Zain. 7, Het. Aleph, Bet, Gimal, Dalet, He, Vav, Zain, Het. Het, number 8. Tet, number 9. Yot, number 10. Tet, Yot. Kaf, number 20. Lamet, number 30. Mayim, number 40. Nun, number 50. Samek, number 16. Ayin, which is the I, number 70. Remember that. Important Egyptian glyph, that one. Pe, number 80. Tzadi, number 90. Kuf, with a Q. Kuf, number 100. Resh, number 200. Shin, number 300. And Tav, number 400. Right? And this is where it gets interesting. Then we've got the, as we were saying before, we've got the Kaf. But the Kaf becomes the 500, right? The Mem becomes the 600, right? And the Nun becomes the 700. These are the final forms of those letters. The Pe becomes the 800, and the Tzadi becomes the 900. Notice how Tzadi becomes 90 to 900, and Pe becomes 80 to 800. The numerological potential doesn't change, right? But all the others do, of those particular 5, what we call double letters. This is important in understanding the basis of the Kabbalah. Those 5 double letters are really important. It also has to do with the shape of the mouth and the sounds that they make. So, and then the number for 1000 is a gigantic Aleph. So the very Kabbalistic Hebrew, which comes from Paleo-Hebrew, which comes from Paleo-Hebrew Phoenician, which comes from ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs, is based upon the same numerical system that the ancient Egyptians used. Do you think that's a coincidence? And since the entire Kabbalah is built around these basic alphabetical associations that relate to these exact numbers shown here, right? 3 cycles of 9, right? Very important. We're talking about the enneagram, right? 3 cycles of 9 is 27, right? What is 3 cycles of 27? Think about it for a moment. 72. So, isn't that interesting? 3 cycles of 27 is 72. What's 4 cycles of 27, right? When you go into the 4 cycles of 27, hold on. 27, 54. Sorry, 3 cycles of 27 is 81. How can I get that wrong? That's 9 times 9. That's the 81. That's the square of 9, the enneagram. And 4 cycles of 27 is 108, right? So you notice how the numbers are doing that. The 108 or the 81. So this 27, coming back to these 3 numbers, this is fundamental to the structure of creation. Remember the enneagram I showed you earlier? I'm going to show it to you again. Like the real Chaldean roots of this geometry, sacred geometry, not that nonsense that Ikazo concocted, which is a new age, another one of those new age scams designed to lock people into a particular way of thinking that's not holographic, that doesn't allow one to understand that the universe is a huge evolving fractal. So these numerical sort of scales are important because the very basis upon the Kabbalah rests upon these numerological scales. And so you can see the way that the ancient Egyptians related to their numbers was in this factor. And it would exponentially go up into 3s. And this is what become the decade scale. And we'll get into the decade just now for a moment. Now, looking at the ancient Egyptian cosmology for another moment, right? So, there we go. So they had the Jeb, the physical plane, right? Then they had the celestial plane, the Nuit. Then they had the underworld spirit, the Duat. And then they had the divine plane, right? The Nun Zep Tepi, right? So I want you to understand when we speak about the underworld spirit, right? The Duat is a realm of those that have passed, the mysterious area located beneath the earth, behind the western horizon. And it is not a place of punishment, but a place of transformation. So they have these 4 fundamental zones, which is very important to understand why the ancient Egyptians related to the number 4 the way they did, right? And obviously the celestial plane, which is the Nuit, embodiment of the goddess Nuit, the arch she arches over the earth. You've probably seen she's the one that does that sort of bend over the earth, and she stands doing a back arch over the earth usually. Usually is she bending backwards? Some images you'll see her bending backwards, some images you'll see her bending forwards. But I think she's usually doing a back arch bend. Or it makes sense for her to be doing that. Then you get the divine plane, which is the first time plane, the Nun Zep Tepi. And this is the sort of primordial plane, right? Now, when we look at key understanding, right, of the concepts of these planes, the principles, right? We've got the Mart, which is the principle of order, right? This is that the harmony of law is vibrating throughout all of the frequencies of the multiverse of creation, which means that there's a synchronicity, a correspondence, a golden thread of correspondence moving through all things. Then they speak about the multi-layered soul, right? And once again, we've got the ark, right? We've got the bar, we've got the car, and then we've got the earth, right? And the 4 cardinal points in the Egyptian law were the 4 sons of the Horus, the horizon, right? and they protect the organs of those that have passed, linking the body to the four corners of the universe, right? So, and then there's these four phases, right? So the phases are like the birth, manifestation is the creation, and the transition, which is the bar separating from the body. And then there's the judgment, the divine judgment of Ma'at. This is like what we still have today in Christian cosmology, right? Only the heart is not being weighed against the feather, but it's to decide whether you're worthy to be initiated into the ark. The ark is the divine eye of all knowledge, and the successful integration of the ka and the ba into the ark, joining the gods in Akhet. So the ark is the primordial state of being, right? It's really important to understand that. In the Kabbalah, we're speaking about Atzilut, right? The Ba is the higher supreme mental plane. This is the plane of intuition. It's also the plane of emotional context. Higher emotion is in information that you can learn through your emotional intelligence, which is the supreme intelligence. Then you've got the Ka, which is and the Ba relates to the astral. Then we've got the Ka that relates to the etheric, which is like the logos, the logical. So the Ba relates to the Bariya, right? And the Bariya is obviously the sphere of creative potential in the Kabbalah. We've got the archetypal Atzilut, we've got the Bariya, which is the creative potential sphere. And then you've got the sphere of Yetzirah, right? And the Yetzirah is that element of the Ka, right? Which is that vital potential of intelligence. It's a vital intelligence that is vital to the body to be able to form itself and get structured into different domains, different aspects, producing the different elements, if you will. And then we've got all of these three fitting into the world of Isiya. So these are like the four planes of the Kabbalah, if you really understand what these guys are going on about. And obviously the ark represents the effective spiritual body of humanity, right? And the Ba is that part of the spirit that connects, it says connects heaven and earth. It's not really true. It's that part that connects our consciousness to the divine, our mental body to the divine. And the Ka, this is that life force that connects the mental body's energies to the physical body, right? And then the physical body is the Ket, which is the receptacle within which the Ka is able to root the Ba, and the Ba is able to root the ark, producing this synchronicity. And then we've got the divine hierarchy. The Assyrian tree represents the structure of the cosmos, and all of the spheres as they correspond. There are 9 spheres. There's always 9 spheres. And the idea of Adam Kadmon, which is the cosmic man in the Kabbalah, represents this anthropomorphic form of the tree. So the tree has been sort of put onto the form of a human body, right? Seen as like a parallel to the Assyrian stories, where the king himself would be seen as the earthly reflection of the divinity. So this is where these ideas come from, is where the very ideas of Adam Kadmon comes from. People don't know this, right? Gematria, numerical system. In Mesopotamian, scribes were particularly interested in this, and they were studying and promoting the knowledge of Gematria back in the Mesopotamian times, right? And so that's where the alphanumeric substitutions came from, right? They realized that there was secret knowledge being hidden within this. And this then became better known later times, right? That were discovered, and they obviously made up dates because these guys just knew exactly when these things were from, right? They just know. But they're saying 727 to 707 BCE. That's one of the particular plates that they've got. But this is ancient knowledge. It goes back all the way back to the Akkadians, which is way before this time. And so But they've got these tracks that go back to 707. Now, Judaism, they're telling us, is old. They're telling us Judaism is thousands of years old. You know the oldest Torah? Do you know that the oldest Christian Bible is older than the oldest Torah? Did you know that? Are you guys aware of that? This is how ridiculous it is, right? Like, I think that the Jewish religion is a very modern invention, personally. I don't know. What do you guys think in the chat? Well, what are your opinions? Like, let me Google. What is the oldest copy of Torah original? And where is it stored now? Just because, the Google AI is going to try and talk nonsense at us, because this is what it does. So, the Boglia Torah. You guys can look this up. It's called the Bologna Torah scroll. It's 1155 and 1225. Now, you explain to me how the oldest copy of the Torah goes that way back. Only goes back to that point, right? It doesn't make sense. It just doesn't, right? We've got papyrus from ancient Egypt. So what's the oldest? What's the oldest Egypt papyrus scroll, and where is it kept? And when we look at the oldest Egyptian scroll, right? So we've got Egyptian scrolls that go back to 2500 BC plus. So we've got 4,500-year-old papyrus scrolls on Earth. But the oldest Torah is about 800 years old. 875 years old. That's the oldest copy of the Torah. But we're supposed to believe that the Torah is some ancient religion, and that everything related to Judaism is some ancient thing. Come on, man. We're not that dumb. We're not that dumb. We're not going to fall for that crap. I'm sorry. We're not falling for it. It's ridiculous. And like you telling me that these people couldn't keep a single bloody sacred scroll safe. Come on, man. People have been keeping sacred scrolls safe for a long time. These so-called monks had all their Kabbalistic lore and knowledge and sacred knowledge, and they couldn't even figure out how to look after a bloody papyrus scroll, which was the most important thing for all of their religion. So my point is, look at the date that I mentioned for this oldest. So 1155 to 1225. What happened then? Let's just take a little deep dive here. When did the Crusades start? This is where it gets interesting, right? So the Crusade started officially November the 27th, 1095. Don't you find it interesting that a little while after the Crusades had done they basically, after they had gone and burnt all the books from all the way around the world, suddenly these Torahs are popping up. And now we've got these Torahs. And suddenly this Torah is like the most ancient thing around, right? And if you ask Google, it'll tell you, oh no, Judaism's thousands of years old. Well, it might be, we don't know. But what we do know is that they're worshipping and they are talking about demons and deities that come from the Akkadian tradition and the Sumerian tradition, like Lilith, for example. And the other deities that they're talking about come from ancient Egypt, right? You know where the Yah comes from? Yah is a lunar deity. Yah is a lunar deity in ancient Egypt, by the way, just in case you want to. This is one of the most important divine names in ancient Kabbalistic lore, right? Yot He, Yah. And El, same idea. Go back and look at El, where this comes from. This is going right back to Akkadian Sumerian stories. Very ancient, right? Way, way before any ideology or anything that's close to like Judaic thought could have come into being. So there were people that were carrying this ancient knowledge from these ancient places for a long, long time. And some of them happened to become Jews. And this was, I believe, after the Crusades. And others, they maintained a different order, right? Who were the Cathars? What knowledge did the Cathars have? The Cathars had this knowledge, this Gematria knowledge, this ancient part of their tradition, part of their Cathar magic, right? Also, that goes back through the Gnostic channels, back to ancient Egypt, through Greece. Everything that Greece had came from ancient Egypt. The Kabbalah comes from Greece. It's more Greek than it is Jewish, its roots. And there's the ideas of for example, right? What's his name? Why can't I think of his name? He didn't leave many books behind, but he shaped all of the Greek ideology. Who's the greatest Greek? One of the greatest Greek mathematicians. His name is in our geometry today. What's his name? Can you guys think of his name in the chat? It's escaped my mind for a moment. It's why am I getting tongue-tied? Why can't I think of his name? Probably I can hear my boy off in the distance and I'm distracted thinking about, is he getting into bed or is he not getting into bed? His mom better be putting him into bed. Okay, no, it's not quite 8:30 yet. But I did ask her. No, it's 9:15. She's only putting him to bed now. Okay. Better late than sorry. Damn. Where was I? Yeah, the fundamental and important aspect of how this Pythagoras, I'm gonna forget his name. Pythagoras, the Pythagoras theorem. Yes. Thank you, Tom. I feel really silly now. I couldn't forget first Pythagoras, but Pythagorean knowledge was based upon numerology and the sacred geometry that Pythagorean schools of mysticism were teaching, which is documented by other Greek people. There's Pythagoras, by the way. Okay, so here's where we're going to go right down to it. We're going to get right down, ladies and gentlemen. Pythagoras taught a set of mystic traditions and knowledge related to the 9 potentials, right? And the 9 potentials. Do I have something here anywhere? Pythagoras. Let's see. Didn't I at some point? Numerology. Pascal, no. Okay. So let me just Google it so I can show it to you guys, because I thought I had a thing from a while ago. Pythagorean philosophy and sacred geometry. Let's hope that I can find what I'm looking for here. Okay, so they speak here about the monad and the dyad. Okay, yes. The harmonia, yes. The tetractys is an equilateral triangle made up of 1, 2, 3, 4, totaling 10. Okay, so this is probably an important thing for me to share with you guys, because so this is it's called the tetractys, right? And it's the 1, the 2, the 3, and the 4, right? So it's 1 dot, 2 dots, 3 dots, right? And 4 dots. Now, you're going to find that there's something with yots. Let me show you this. It's a big part of the Kabbalah. Yots, 10 yots. 10 yots make a triangle image. Hopefully I can find it for you guys and show you guys what I'm talking about. There we go. There we go, ladies and gentlemen. Now, this is, I'm sorry to tell you guys, we're going to be told that this vomit, right? We're going to be told that this stuff, right, is, stop screen share. I've got to start again. Dang. There we go. So this idea that we've got here, right? We're going to be told that this is Kabbalistic law, right? This is supposedly Kabbalistic law, right? No, it's not. This is Pythagorean mathematics. This is Pythagorean sacred geometry. But this is fundamental to the Kabbalah. Like, it's one of the first things you're going to learn, right? And this represents the 10 Sephirot. And this is where the decade comes from, right? This is why we are counting on 10 fingers. This is representing the enneagram, which is the 9 relationships between those 10 yachts, those 10 flames, the 10 Sephirot. And this is called the Tetraktais, TekrakTys. Yeah, there we go. Right? So this Tetraktais, the most sacred Pythagorean symbol. Right? Now, is it a coincidence that the most sacred Pythagorean symbol happens to be one of the most sacred Kabbalistic symbols, both sacred to the Hermetic Kabbalists and the Jewish Kabbalists alike, but coming directly from Pythagorean theories? And then I'll take it one step further. Pythagoras, numerology. Okay, so now we're looking at the Sephirot, right? Let's see if we can find it. When you do this, you get stuck. Pythagoras, numerology, enad, duad, triad, and the 9. Okay, let me try that. Okay, here we go. Finally. Frustrating when you're dealing with a bloody AI that is, it's bent on leading you down the garden path. You really got to know how to handle it. So this is like the fundamentals of Pythagorean numerology, right? Now you tell me that this isn't the Kabbalah. So the monad is the ultimate source, unity, and starting point of all things. We call it Kether. Kether, the monad. Okay, right. Then we've got the dyad. The introduction of duality and polarity represents division and the contrasting forces of light and dark, right? And the possibility of relationship between things. I'm sorry, but in the Kabbalah, that's the second sphere, right? That's Chokmah, represents wisdom. The second sphere, which is the triad, right? In Kabbalistic law, this is called Bina, the first true odd number and the resolution of the dyad's conflicts, right? This is where the polarity becomes stabilized, right? Harmony, no, wrong word. Sorry, AI, you fell on your butt there. Balance, not harmony, balance. Balance between two things. Harmony represents a number of things. There aren't a number of things to be in harmony. There's just two things. And when two things have harmony, it's called balance. So it's representing balance. So this is where AI is trying to take us cockeyed, trying to screw with our heads. And it's the completion of a cycle, the beginning, the middle, and the end, right? So this is what this is represented in Bina by the dark ocean, where you have the three mothers, right? The three mothers, the triple goddess. Hold on, witchcraft. Let's just wrap our head around what we're talking about here. So this is ancient knowledge of the Kabbalah being represented in the ancient Greek. Then if you go through them number by number, right? The triad, the enad. So the enad is the pinnacle of the single digit sequence. It is the limit of numbers before they return to unity. 10 is the return back to unity. That is Malkut. So, but where are all the other numbers? Anyway, if you guys go and look this up, you will see for yourselves, if you break through it, number by number, each of the Pythagorean, the fours, the five, the six, all of the numerological principles as outlined are the baseline of what has become the Sephirot, the Kabbalah. And they're the 9 spheres. And that is essentially the true heart and soul of the Enneagram, right? And I don't mean that nonsense at Ikazo. I'm talking about the Chaldean one, right? Now, you have the 9 deities in ancient Egypt. That's where this comes from. It's the mathematical science, the geometry of the 9 sacred principles that were metaphorically associated in terms of narrative as the Enad, the fundamental creators of the universe, right? In ancient Egyptian law. And not by accident, there are 9 of them. But when all 9 stand together as a group, you have 10. Why? Because there are 9 separate ones, but when they sit around one round table, right? How many knights were with King Arthur? How many knights sat at King Arthur's table? Got to have a bit of fun with this. Go on, let's take a look. 150. No, man. At King Arthur's round table. Okay, they're quoting in ridiculous numbers. 250, 150, 50, 24. Nobody seems to get it right. Diot Percival Romance, 13. Okay, that's interesting. Some people are saying anywhere from 12 to 1,600 warriors. I bet you there were 9. I bet you there were 9 in the original story. But the story's been told by so many people, you can't really keep up with it, which is fair enough. This is what happens. It's part of the dumbing down of society to take our stories and steal them from us, repackage them in ways that they don't work. So when we look at this Enneagram system here, what do we see? We're seeing 9 circles. I hope you can all see 9 circles, because that's what I see when I look at it. I see 9 circles. And so number 1 represents 1 circle, a sphere. 2, a sphere. 3, a sphere. 4, a sphere. 5, a sphere. 6, a sphere. 7, 8. 9 represents 9 spheres. They are all super coded on top of each other. Why? We don't want to lie to our brain by giving it pretty little lines and pictures. We want to understand and accept the fact that it's a non-spatial potential. So all 9 spheres are superimposed over 1 sphere, but they are denoted as 9 separate spheres. And it's because of the way in which they phase. And the phasing we represent as moving around a circle, around the spiral of a torus field. So what is the 10th sphere? The 9 crosses the event horizon, carrying all of the completeness of all of the 10 spheres with it. And when it crosses the event horizon, it is reborn as a new octave of being. And that becomes 10. And then it's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. Crosses the horizon, is born as 100. Can you see that this is the ancient Egyptian system? That is the numbering system of the Kabbalah, as I presented it here. And so this is, what you're looking at here is the tree of life. But you're seeing it from the top down. You're looking at it from the top down or from the bottom up, right? And you're not seeing it as separate little bubbles floating in space. They are all over 1 sphere. In other words, the dimensions are laid over each other. There's not this dimension over there, that dimension over there, that dimension over there, that dimension all neatly laid out in a linear fashion. No. The etheric field is right here, right now. The astral field is right here, right now. The spiritual field is right here, right now. It's not over there, spatially, or the moment you try and spatially arrange it in your mind, you change the way you think about it. And when you change the way you think about it, you change what you can understand about it. So you got to stop using that ridiculous little tree of life that they've given you. You got to throw that in the bin, because it's going to create a series of walls in your mind that will prevent you from understanding the cosmic structure of unity. And the cosmic structure of unity is essentially a fractal. And once you can unhinge your mind from requiring the linear structures, then you can unhinge your mind from thinking in linear ways. And then you start to think laterally, and you start to appreciate the universe from alternative perspectives. And that's when you start to transcend the flesh and start to learn to bring your consciousness out of the physical domain and start to look at it from spiritual perspectives, literally out of the body. So that's like one thing to consider. And I'll give you one more thing that'll be quite useful for you to understand as well, I think, which I think might help to put it all into perspective. Because and I'm going to unveil this system very soon. It's going to be coming at a bush whisperer near you. So here we have what you're looking at, right? And if you're not sure what you're seeing here, for those of you that are new, right? If you're not sure what you're looking at this, right? But I've taken each thing outside of it, and there's three things superimposed over each other here, and here we've unsuperimposed them. So now you can see what you're actually looking at. So in the center, you have three triangles, and the three triangles intersect in such a way that it's 3, 6, 9, right? Which is 3, 6, 9, which adds up to 9, 18. And then 2, 5, 6, which adds up to 15, which is 6. And then 7, 1, 4, which adds up to 12, which is 3. 3, 6, 9. The red triangle, 3. The blue triangle, 6. The yellow triangle, 9. And the 9 triangle, 3, 6, 9. That is the 9 triangle. The yellow triangle is represented by the 3 mothers. That mother is the element of Aleph, which is the Fool. Now we've got the tarot here. So that is the Fool. Now this is the Chaldean seal that I'm using. I'm decoding the Chaldean seal, showing you how the original Chaldean seal is effectively carrying the entire tree of life on it. So there we have the supernal Aleph, which represents the element of air. Hence, I've made it yellow, right? There we have the Hanged Man, which represents Mime, the letter Mime, which is the number 30, right? Sorry, 40, which represents the element of water. It's when you're looking at it from the tarot perspective, it breaks down to the numerology of 3, 12. It's the 12th tarot card. But that is a mystic translation of a manifestational potential. And so there's a phasing, right? So the Hanged Man, which is the 12th tarot card, which represents the number 12, is also actually the 13th Hebrew letter that represents the number 40. 40 was very important to Enki. Okay, now we're going to see these associations, right? 40 was fundamental to Enki, who ruled over, yep, you got it, the waters. This is why the Kabbalah is so focused on the waters, and why the Hanged Man is of such importance when looking at the spiritual tradition, because of Enki's legacy. And it's all encoded in the Kabbalah. For those of you who have eyes, it's all here. So we've got the 3 mother letters, and then we've got Judgment that represents Shin, the tooth, which is the number 300, but it's the 20th major arcana card. And these 3 principles according to the Kabbalistic law, is where all things come from. So all the other letters were born of these three mothers, right? So notice that these three triangles together make a 9-sided geometric square, which I do not call an anagram. I want to be clear. I do not call that 9-sided square in the side an anagram. And I take it you guys know why I don't call it an anagram. Can I draw 9 lines without lifting my pencil from the paper? And the 9th line ends where the first line starts? No, I can't. It's not an anagram. It's a 9-sided geometric star. Or there are 2 anagrams here. If I start at the point of 1 and I draw and I draw and I draw and I draw 9 equal length lines, I'm going to end up exactly back at the same point I started from with the number 1. That is the only way in the entire university you can draw 9 straight lines, right, in a geometric pattern where the 9th line is going to start exactly where it ended. That way and the other way, which is the green one on the right-hand side. So those are 2 anagrams. So we've got a masculine force anagram. We've got a feminine force anagram. Notice the feminine force anagram is circumventing, right? What does the man do in a dance floor? Traditional dancing? The man is in the center. Look at the left anagram. And he keeps the root. Look at the center of the anagram, the orange anagram on the left. It represents the axis mundi. The man keeps the roots of the axis mundi. What does the woman do? She produces the harmonies and the beauty that flow around the axis mundi on the outside. So you can see the green represents the dancing ballerina dancing circles around the guy who's in the center, holding her hand, keeping her steady. You see the same thing in ice skating. You see the same thing in Latin dancing. There's a reason why these ancient dance forms, which have become more modernized, follow this recipe, because they are telling us something about the nature of the spheres and the Kabbalah, representing the 2 principles, the principle of rising force and the principle of falling force. So you would say that the rising force, the Pingala, is on the left-hand side here, from Vedic cosmology, and the Ida is on the right-hand side here. And the Shashumna represents the unification and the place from whence these others come, right? And so the Shashumna is unified at Visuddhi and Ajna chakra, which is the higher centers, which is where all the other potentials come from in order to manifest. So, and notice something else. So you got the 3 mother letters representing this 12-sided star, which is the 369, encoding the 369. Then you got masculine, externalizing, and you got the sun, you got the wheel, you got the devil, you got death, you got the lovers, you got strength, you got the emperor, you got the priestess, you got all of these running around in a circle. Right? These are 9 tarot cards of the major arcana that represent 9 relationships between different spheres. Let me say that again. 9 relationships between different spheres. What am I saying? I'm saying that where the number 1 is, that's a placeholder for another sphere, because we're speaking multidimensional here. Where the number 6 is, that's a placeholder for another sphere. So there's a secret and sacred relationship between the 1st sphere and the 6th sphere, and that is the sun. Right? Now, let me show you something. Let me show you something. Did I lose that other ridiculous picture that I had? Okay, let me get it back again. Tree of Life. Kabbalah. And what you're going to notice here is the same idea. So I hope you guys are ready. Why can't I bring that up? There we go. Okay. So what do we see here? What do we see here? We see a secret relationship between beauty and the crown, the first sphere and the sixth sphere, right? We see a secret. They'll tell us that relationship is Jimal. Okay? I'll tell you that's fluff. That's hoggle poggle fluff, right? When we look at it, let me get you back to, but you see, they are suggesting that there's that important relationship there, right? So when we look at the ninth and the sixth, the sun is the sphere. What does the sun represent? Tiferet. Hello, the sun, the solo logos, the divine child. Have you seen the image on the tarot card of the sun? It's the divine child riding on the horse, personal power of purity with celebration. That is like moving towards the highest frequencies, right? There's another interesting relationship with one. One shares a sacred relationship with number 8. Why? The moon. That's really important to understand, right? So 6 represents the harmonies and the prana and the life. 8 represents knowledge, right? Represents the dynamic knowledge of being able to make things happen, magical knowledge, the moon, right? So one has this powerful association, the polarity with the moon, and in its number 6, copper, Venus, it relates to the sun. So you can start to extrapolate the reasons why all of these associations operate, and it's not by accident, right? The tarot cards literally just fit onto these just like that. You don't even have to do anything to them. I was sitting there contemplating them for a long time thinking, what am I going to do? How am I going to break out these tarot cards? How am I going to associate them? And I went into a deep state of reverie, deep state of meditation, and it hit me like a bang on the head, like bang. And I saw it. I saw it before me. It was shown to me by my guides. They showed me, they said, look at this. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't see it. How did I not see that? It's so obvious. They have made it excessively complicated so that you've got to make excuses for this and excuses for that and try to overcomplicate this and overcomplicate that and create this web of complexity. Why? Because they wanted to hide the truth in plain sight. This is those writers, all those writers that are celebrated for being masters and knowing so much about the Kabbalah. They were selling us horse manure. Sorry to say, horse manure is what they were selling, and that was their mission. So I've only got about 25 minutes until I want to be done. In fact, I want to wrap up soon. So here we got an idea of exactly how this enagrammic system fits together, and here you see all 3 superimposed. You see the yang enneagram and the yin enneagram. And so each one of these lines represents a tarot card and a relationship. And you'll notice that there are 21 relationships represented. Guess where the 22nd relationship is? Guess. The 22nd relationship is the relationship of the world. What is the world? The world is Malkut. The world is the reunification. What does Pythagoras call the 10th? The 10th is the reunification of all 9. The circle that combines 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That is the world. That is the world. And that numerical association, the relationship between 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5, 5 to 6, 6 to 7, 6 to 8 to 9, that is the world. And what does the world relate to? Tav. What does Tav relate to? Saturn. How many relationships are there between those 8 numbers? Right? If we look at them carefully. There are 9 relationships moving around in a circle, right? In a circle.
But when they're not in a circle, how many relationships are there? 8. You see, Saturn's Q is hidden in this, right? When you break open the enneagram and you open up the knowledge, it's no longer a circle because you've broken it open. When you break it open, it becomes 8. Saturn, you're now looking at time. So cosmic time is a circle. Saturnial time is a broken vessel. This has got to do with what they speak of as the fall. And they've overcomplicated all this nonsense and turned it into a weird narrative about religious concepts and stuff. The fall, the Adam Cadman fall, what they've presented as this, Big love. Namaste, Vincent. How you doing? I hope you're well, man. I hope you're healthy. I hope you're looking after yourself. Hey, Carly. Namaste. Big love, dear Carly. I hope you're having a great session. I hope you had a great session. I hope you're taking it easy. So when we look at how these all fit together, we can see there's a perfect synchronous. And the 10 Sefirot are running in a circle, right? The 10th Sefirot is where the world archetype meets, and it is the synthesis of all 9 spheres. So within Malkut, you have all 9 spheres shining into Malkut as a singular unit. That's why the 10th sphere is a sphere that isn't numbered, but it is a synthesis of all, which is the rebirth octave of those 9, which is 10. That's Malkut. That's why they say there's 10 spheres and not 9. 10 spheres and not 11. Because all 9 of these spheres exist within a 10th sphere. That's the reality of the enneagram. But the 10th sphere doesn't exist of its own accord. It exists as a combination and a complement of these 9. And that's Kabbalistic law 101, right? So when we start to break these things down, we start to see there's a very simple and very easy to follow pattern here. And this pattern is fairly easy to read, right? It's fairly easy to keep track of. And was there more that I wanted to share with you guys? I think there was. What was there? I think that was basically it. Because I wanted to just break down the Kabbalah. Oh, yeah, the word Kabbalah. That's probably an interesting thing to start with. So the word Kabbalah, we're told, it relates to the mouth, to speaking, right? The truth that comes from the mouth, speaking, this the spoken truth. The secret about the Kabbalah was it was never, ever to be written down, ever, right? What do we know about Pythagorean schools of law? Nobody was allowed to write down anything Pythagoras said. I don't know if you guys know that. He had a strict rule. It's only to be spoken in this circle of us. And he would surround himself with a certain number of students. Guess how many? Guess? Yeah. Pythagoras, the enneagram, he worked according to these sacred principles. And he would then speak the lecture and nobody would write down anything. It was forbidden. And this is the roots of the Kabbalah. So you can see how the roots of the Kabbalah go back there. Now you can see how the numerations come back. Now the language of Paleo-Hebrew and Hebrew and Phoenician comes directly from the Kemetic, the symbolic writings, right? The hieroglyphs. So, and it's not even disputed that that's where. So in the Kabbalah, it's all about how these letters were hewn, right? And it's all about these cosmic letters that were created. The Sefer Yetzirah, the Sefer Zohar, all of these writings are very modern writings. Are they modern writings? I think that there are ancient writings that were kept by certain initiates that then wrote it down, but they wrote it down and they wrote it down. And it was part of a printing press idea, right? And it was written down in code so that if it fell into the wrong hands, it wouldn't make any sense to them. So all of the so-called Kabbalistic lore that we have has been coded so heavily that it's basically useless to the people who want to read them. And so yeah, it's really fundamental to grasp these base root ideas. And looking at the word Kabbalah, okay, so the Ka is the etheric body, right? The vital essence. The Ba is the spiritual, emotional, higher mental body, right? So the Ka represents the Yetzirah in the Kabbalah. The Ba represents the Bariah in the Kabbalistic lore, the Ka-Ba. Now, La, the letter for L was not a letter that was known in ancient Egypt. I don't know if you guys know it. Many of the letters were changed over time, right? And so what you'll find here is that there's been some very interesting sort of concepts. So the letter Ra for the sun was often written up later on by the Greeks and various peoples as La. I don't know if you guys know this. So the Kabbalah, having been taken over by the Greeks from in the ancient Egyptian time, would have been Kabbalah. Follow this with me. This is really interesting. So the Kabbalah, right? The Ra, which is the sun, became La, right? Then there is another one, which is Ah, right? And that's quite interesting too, because the Ah represents something quite fundamental. That's AA is written for a deity of the moon, right? So we've got the Ka, the etheric, right? We've got the Ba, the astral. We've got the sun and we've got the moon. What are they trying to say? Kabara. Ra. Kabara. Kabbalah. And then they changed the pronunciations. They lost the pronunciations for Hebrew as well. That's really funny. When you go to Israel, you'll learn these things. Go live in Israel for a couple of years. You'll be shocked at what you pick up. They had to re-standardize how the Kabbalah was pronounced and re-standardized how it was written, and then they couldn't agree on it. So they had to have big conferences and votes between different people from different parts of the world because they were all speaking different versions of Hebrew. So they reinvented a standardized version. This is why all the modern script has got all those dots and funny things in it, because like the letter Bet, for example, could be pronounced with a V or a B, but they had to standardize it to whether it's a B or a V. And so there are a number of these additions that were added into the modern Hebrew because there were no vowels. So they had to insinuate vowels upon the consonants because there are no vowels in the ancient. Vowels could be manipulated. There's a very fluid and liquid language, this old language that Paleo-Hebrew became Hebrew. But they had to structure it the way we've structured our other languages, because otherwise it would be very hard to brainwash us with it. And to brainwash the people who were laid to speak it, right? They had to brainwash them. It's about control. So, yeah, when we look at the words, the Ka, the Ba, the Ra, and the Ah, Kabara, and the moon deity and the sun deity are locked in a polarity that mirrors, right, the Ka and the Ba. And the subtle suggestion here is that the Ka is an emanation of the sun and the Ba is an emanation of the moon. Or what we know as the moon is the externalized emanation potential of the Ba, and what we know as the Ka is the externalized emanations of the Ka. And so hence the etheric is externalizing itself in the sun. And what comes out of the sun? Electricity, right? Eth comes from the roots of Aleph and Tav, the first and the last, right? Which represents that 369 triangle, the yellow one that you can see if you look at this image, and the circle around it. That is the triangle in the circle. Now we're talking alchemy. Can you see how the alchemy is an externalization of the same principles we're talking about here? Well, the moment you understand what the Kabbalah really is and how it really works, you can decode every form of occult or mysticism on it, because it is foundational and fundamental to all systems, and all systems fit into it, right? And that's like really something powerful to recognize. When one recognizes that, it's like an incredible breakthrough, right? It's some powerful breakthrough that happens. It's like, wow, it's one of those wow eureka moments. So yeah, we've been going for 1 hour and 47 minutes, and I've got to go and check on my little boy. But I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of an insight into the nature of how the Kabbalah has been taught to us in a very linear structure, and how those linear structures of that funny little tree that they show us locks our minds into a particular way of thinking about it. And it's part of a psyop. It's part of a way to pull us away from understanding that this is a conceptual way of understanding the emanations, and numerology is fundamental to it. You understand this geometry and what's going on here and the relationships between the numbers, and you'll gain a very deep insight into numerology and how it works. And that will mean you can geometrically learn to decode things. And it's all there. It's all in the enneagram. So the enneagram is the source of the Kabbalah. The Kabbalah is the enneagram. And the 9 spheres spoken of in the Sufis, which is decoded and put into the Qibla. And notice the word Qibla and Kabbalah, the same. The Arabic word Qibla. In fact, the Arabic and the Hebrew are almost the same language. If you really go and live there, you'll find like a lot of the words are the same in the languages. If you listen to the counting in Arabic and the counting in Hebrew, they're very similar. And they might have different looks, but even it's Aleph or Alif, Bet, Gimal or Jimal, right? It's a Jimal or a Gimal. It's a Bit or a Beth. It's an Alif or an Aleph. It's the same letters, it's the same alphabet. It's the same words. It's the same everything. So when they're speaking about Qibla, you're talking about Kabbalah. Only they've taken it to make it exoteric, to say it's just about people facing Mecca. No, people are facing Mecca. Why? They're facing the cube. What does the cube represent? Okay, let me break this down for you. Last few minutes. Why are they facing Mecca, the Qibla? I'm just going to show you how universal this knowledge is. The Qibla represents the cube. The cube has got 6 faces, right? The 6 faces, and there are 7 fundamental principles, right? So these 7 fundamental principles are the 7 fundamental letters. So you got these 7 double letters, right? And the 7 double letters are basically the letter for Bet, right? The letter for Jimal, the letter for Resh, the letter for Dalet, the letter for Pe, the letter for Resh, right? And the letter for Tav, right? And those 7 fundamental letters, let me show you what they've done here. It might make your life so much easier. Rose cross. Let's see what the Rosicrucians, this is what I was taught as a little boy. I learned to use the rose cross, right? So one of the first things, and I didn't know at the time that it was part of a psyop, and I learned to use it. Don't get me wrong, it's very useful for what it is. But once again, it's a limiting. It gives you a little bit of knowledge in a way, but that little bit of knowledge really becomes a powerful limitation in the end, right? And that's really important to understand and recognize. So this is the rose cross, the proverbial layman, right? And yeah, you can see what we're talking about. So notice, we're going to look at, so we've got you notice we've got the 3 triangles that I've represented here in my enneagram, the blue triangle, the red triangle, the yellow triangle, right? The red triangle represents these 3 principles, which are 3, 6, and 9, and 3, 6, and 9, and 3, 6, and 9. I hope you guys are paying attention. Now we go to the center of the rose cross. This is how you draw sigils. This is how Kabbalists, Rosicrucian Kabbalists draw their sigils. This is how I was taught. So you've got an Aleph, you got your Shin, and you've got your Mime. These are the three fundamental letters, right? Just to make sure that you guys are following and you know exactly what I'm talking about, right? Oh my gosh, you guys did not tell me that I didn't have the picture on the screen. Gosh, I feel bad. Okay, let me remove that. Let me add that. Right. Start again. Please excuse me, people. Please excuse me. So this is the rose cross. This is how you draw sigils. You'll notice that there's the blue, the red, and the yellow, and that there are the three principles, the 3, 6, and the 9, the 3, 6, and the 9, the 3, 6, and the 9, running around the outside, right? And 1 represents 3, right? 9 on the yellow on the top, right? And 3 on the fire on the left, and 6 on the right. The numbers representing these elemental states, right? And then in the middle, where you actually draw your sigils, right? You take your sigil, you spell a word, and you draw a sigil using this wheel. So let's say I wanted to do the word A B abets, A B in the study. I would start here and I would draw to the B, and then I would go to the Z, and I could stylize it. I could have a curve that goes there. I could have a curve that goes around that way. I could have a straight line. There's different ways of, as long as you are connecting these three things, you can draw a sigil using these principles. Anyway, that's how these things work. And obviously clockwise and anti-clockwise matter depending on what your sigil is for. So you see in the center, we've got the 3 mother letters, right? And just to break that down for you, to give you some context of what I'm talking about in relation to that, you see in the center here, you see these 3, you got the 3, 6, 9, the yellow, right? You got the 4, 1, 7, the 3 number, the red, and you've got the 5, 8, 2. You got these 3 principles. These 3 principles are the fundamental principles from where the others arise. So these other relationships come into being because of combinations of this, right? So just important to recognize that, because this is foundational to understanding how these things work. Then, getting back to this one, if you look around these 3, you've got the letters that I told you. What did I say? Pe, Kaf, Tav, Gimel, Resh, Bet, and Dalet, right? If you go, Dalet's on the bottom, Resh is over there, and Bet's over there, Pe is over there, Kaf is over there, Tav is over there, and Gimel is over there. So these are the 7 double letters. They represent the 7 planets, 7 microcosmic influences. And around those 7 microcosmic influences, you have the 12. Let me center that better for you guys. You have the 12. You have the 12. You have the 12 simple letters of the Hebrew language, and the 12 simple letters represent the 12 signs of the macrocosm. You got the top there. Red is Aries. On the right of it, Quof, that represents Pisces. On the left of it, that is Vav, that the Hierophant, that represents Taurus. And so that is, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Aquarius, and Aquarius and Pisces, representing the 12 constellations. So this is an astrological wheel that represents the 3 fundamental principles, and you can see how this is where all of the lore comes from, to understanding and decoding sort of these Kabbalistic things this comes from Rosicrucianism. Now, where did Rosicrucianism get their roots from? A big part of the Rosicrucian roots came from the Arabic world. People don't know this. It comes from the Kabbalah. right? And the Kabbalah is the Arabic version of what we call the Kabbalah. So when we speak about the Kabbalah as being Judaic, it's not. It's held by the Muslims. Well, not it's esoteric, only certain. The imams, some of the imams have this knowledge. I've met an imam who we've had discourse on this, and the Khalifka will give certain knowledge and wisdom to certain of the imams when they get initiated. So we have this law that's being represented here with the rose cross in the center. And then we get back to the image. So there's an idea for you to understand what I was saying before about the seven. I'm not sure what I was getting at. What was I saying about it specifically? About how the seven. Oh yeah. So if you take three things, right? And let's say you take A, B, C, right? And you want to make a code out of A, B, C. How many different ways can you fit it together? Well, you can say A, B, C. That's 3. Then you can say A, B. That's 4. Then you can say B, BC. That's 5. Then you can say AC. That's 6. And then you can say ABC. That's 7. So you see that 3 things can recombine if you mix them in 7 ways. So when you mix these 3 principles in 7 possible ways, 7 things come out of them. And those are the 7 macrocosmic potentials. Now, the macrocosmic potentials are 7, but they represent the principle of harmony, 6, Tiferet. When we look at how the 12 emerges from the 7, you have to have within the 7, you have to have an alpha and you have to have an omega. And what I mean by that, you have to have a head and a tail of the serpent of the Ouroboros. So one sacrifices itself to become the head. Another sacrifices itself to become the tail. And those two are, well, we're going back to ancient Egyptian law here. I want you to understand the eyes, the right eye and the left eye, right? The eye of Horus and the eye of Isis, right? The eye of Re and the eye of the 2 eyes of the sun and the moon. Why are the 2 eyes the sun and the moon? Because they circumscribe Horus. The horizon is captured by the 2 eyes of the sun and the moon. And the horizon is a circular form. It's the wheel, right? So this Ouroboros is expressed in the subtle knowledge that's bound in the ancient Egyptian law, which is essentially Kabbalistic law, where this knowledge comes from. And what then is left are 5 planets. And those 5 planets have a masculine and a feminine element. So then we have the Jupiter, which has a masculine Sagittarius and a feminine Pisces. Then we have Mercury, which has a masculine Gemini and a feminine Virgo. Then we have Mars, which is a masculine Aries and a feminine Scorpio, right? Then we have Venus, which is a masculine Libra and a feminine Taurus. And then we have Saturn, which is a masculine Capricorn and a feminine Aquarius. And so you see these 10 signs then fit in to the head and tail represented by Cancer and Leo. Why were the ancient Egyptians aligning their things with the constellation of Leo and Cancer? Because it's the head and tail, buddy. It's the beginning and ending, alpha omega of the cosmos, which is the 7 principles reflected outwards, which is the fundamental mixations of the fundamental 3 principles, which is the triad. There's no accident that the word triad and the word tree are fundamentally connected, right? That the tree comes from triad, right? So when we look at the tree of life, the triad, we see this reflected. It's quite universal. So there's like a last little tidbit of something to think about. How the 12 emerged from the 7 emerge from the 3. And when you take the 12 and you add 7 to it, you end up with 19. And when you add 3 to it, you end up with 22. That's why there are 22 major arcana. That major arcana is an ancient Egyptian legacy. And this is something that has been known in the mystery schools, but it hasn't been spoken about. I was taught this in the mystery schools when I was a little boy. Yeah. Because I was a latent psychic with latent powers as a child, when I was 12, I reawoken those powers. And I suddenly learned how to communicate with beings, and I could affect things, right? As a 12-year-old. And immediately when my powers awoke, they awoke partially because I'd met a master who started teaching me how to really concentrate. And that concentration boomed my powers. And then I got into a situation where I had to use them, and I had non-physical beings teach me how to actually utilize these things that had been like a curse to me my whole life as a child. And suddenly, out of the woodwork started crawling these sophisticated gentlemen, and started taking me to these occult places, Rosicrucians, libraries, to show me how to find knowledge and how to decode this knowledge. And then, they wanted me around, and I was like, I wasn't sure about them. And I knew they wanted something from me. And I was like, you guys want something from me. I can feel it. And they were like, well, it's symbiotic. You can have a magnetic effect on our work that we're doing. It's a synergy. And so I was distrusting immediately, and rightfully so. That's why I never joined the order. And other mystery schools that I was in, I never officially signed on to be in the mystery schools. But because I was fully latent, I was invited as an honorary member. And I had problems with other members in these mystery schools feeling terribly threatened by me, because they were all adults and they'd worked really hard to get where they were. And I just walk in and I'm like brought into the Holy of Holies and working with the group. And they were like, they had a problem, but the high priest was like, no, this is how it has to be. And they thought it was sacrilege that I was allowed to get given this knowledge, but it was how it was. And, the different places where I was at different times, this followed me around till I was 19, 20. And then I decided I was going to work on my own. I'd had enough of all these groups. No, it was probably in my early 20s where I decided I had enough of these guys. They're all up to no good. And that's when I decided in my early 20s, 23, 24, that I needed to go to India. It came to me in a flash. My guides literally showed me where I was going to go. So for me, it's been a synchronous journey through, when I went to India, the Kabbalah was revealed to me. I met a gentleman who was a master of Qibla. How funny is that? And how did I meet him? In trance. How did he meet me? In trance. And then we saw each other and recognized each other. It was like deja vu moment. And I was like, I'd been seeing him when I was in my sacred trance in my morning, because I would sit in meditation for 4 hours every morning, right? And I'd be sitting in meditation, and there he would be. And he'd be singing in his tower, singing his Qibla prayers, and he would be having visions of me. And then the universe brought us together, and we could barely speak the same language. So we had people coming to help us, so we would draw pictures and communicate with pictures. And guess what we were drawing? We were drawing these 9-sided geometric patterns that we were understanding. We were able to telepathically communicate through little pictures. We didn't need words. So it was like a profound relationship I had with this guy. Just one of the many people I met along the way when I was living in India. People with genuine psychic powers as well. So, I think we've been led down the garden path. We've been led astray. All of these so-called texts and books, they've been here to lead us off, to hide the truth. And it's up to us to regain the truth. So there we go. It's been more than 2 hours. I'm going to send you all big love. Big blessings. I hope you guys have an absolutely wonderful day and a great start to the weekend. I hope you guys enjoyed this as much as I did. Thank you for being here. Gaz and Howard and Carly and Vincent and Freya and everybody else that's been here, sending you all big love. Sending blessings, peace, honor, and respect to all of you. Don't forget to smile, keep the smile alive. And to everybody else that came and joined as well, Om Namah Shivaya. I'm sending you all big love and blessings. And I'm going to be breaking down the Enneagram numerology piece by piece, breaking down the path working piece by piece between the different spheres to understand this hyperdimensional 9-sphered system, which is all represented by a single sphere, which is a single circle, something you can hold in your hand. And when you see in the tarot card somebody holding the sphere in their hand, I want you to understand what they're holding. They're holding the tree of life. They're holding this ancient knowledge. So you'll see it in, for example, in the hands of the emperor, for example. And the emperor is holding the sphere in his hand because he represents completion, right? Number 9. Go figure. Anyway, before I get carried away, sending you a big love and blessings. Om Namah Shivaya. Take it easy. Keep it sweet. Keep it light. See you guys tomorrow, 6 p.m. for the usual roundtable. And till then, big love. And Tom Rue, thank you to you too. Thank you, everybody. Sending you all so much love. And lovely to see you again, Vincent. And Howard. And everybody else. And Gaz and the crew. And Freya. And I hope you guys, hope your weekend is going to just get better. Om Shanti.